Many of us know about addictions and relate them to substances like drugs or alcohol. At first you just like it, then you crave it, then you can enter to get it at any cost, and finally, without planning it, you become addicted. That is what addicts commonly say and what makes addictions so sneaky. What is even more surprising is that studies have shown that they can point out people and relationships too. How can that be possible? How could we intend to take someone else at any cost? This last question is common among love addicts, and different questions arise among gambling, work, and social network addicts. Unfortunately, there is not a simple answer. Instead, there are speculations about the reasons behind these patterns of behavior that we can all detect, prevent, and ultimately treat. Science is still struggling to define whether those reasons are risk factors, genes, or personality traits, but in the meantime, preventive actions point to all of them. It all brings up an important discussion about from when do we start becoming addicted. It is when we just like it, crave it, or intend on taking it at any cost. Can we really identify and prevent addictions? Although it is possible to track the moment that one specific person starts getting addicted, there is not a general rule that applies to everyone. Instead, it may occur at different times depending on personal circumstances. Also, you need to consider that you can find different types of addictions. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, no single factor is a predictor of a person's risk for substance abuse and addiction. It opens the doors to different elements as addiction starts and develops due to a combination of factors. First, different things can be addictive. The definition sets clear that other elements different to substances can be addictive. Second, there is a lack of control. Addicts notice their lack of control when they want to stop or avoid it. At first, it is common to think that they are in control of the situation, but the lack of control occurs later. Third, the behavior has harmful consequences. Many people may think that not being able to stop behaving in a certain way is an addiction, but it goes beyond that as people need to face harmful consequences to make it an addiction. The consequences may be in different aspects of life. It could be personal, professional, or social. Factors push and make addictions to start and develop. National Institute on Drug Abuse says they can be biological, environmental, and developmental. Biology has a strong influence and it involves all the effects of DNA. That includes gender, skin color, physical shape, and overall natural health conditions. Environment. The experiences of people while growing affect how they react to drugs or relate to others and life in general in the future. Some examples include the following. The childhood home or environment is chaotic, unstable, or abusive. Some famous artists like Drew Barrymore, star of the movie E.T., became addicted at an early age and she came from a chaotic family. Parents or peers have an accepting attitude toward substance use. An example is the actor Robert Downey Jr., the star of the movie Iron Man. His parents were also actors and very permissive about the use of drugs, and that incentivized him to try and remain using drugs. The peer group uses drugs or alcohol and exerts peer pressure. It is a common situation among teenagers in schools who don't want to be left behind the group. The person struggles with academic or social success. We can see this in people at any age, but mostly among those who succeeded in their professional life and need help to maintain the pace with their activities. Development. It includes traumatic events, especially during their childhood and teenage years. Although one or more factors can trigger the addiction, most of the time the process starts before that. When we analyze all the factors, we can see that people who already have a factor in their life become addicted. That explains why some people can control themselves and stop consuming drugs or acting in certain ways. Although all addictions share the three key elements that we already mentioned, there are different types of them. The variations start by the difference in the target of the addiction. Some of them are about substances, others are about people and relationships, and others about certain aspects of life, such as work, the internet, or gambling, to name a few. The importance of identifying different types of addiction is because they have different patterns to develop. This is to say that the process to become an addict flows differently and has the predominant way to start. Let's see how it goes for some of them. When addiction is about substances like drugs and alcohol, the brain gets affected by chemical substances that change its composition and function. These changes are scientifically proven and many consider this is the beginning of the addiction. However, many people who try these substances do not get caught. As a result, there are other elements involved. This is why some of your favorite actors go to rehab. Some elements that can be present are environmental, biological, or about development. This type of addiction is referred to as a problem to stop and control gambling activities. People who get addicted to gambling are usually very competitive because they always want to win more and more. But it is not the only risk factor or the trigger to become an addict. Instead, they can have previous mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Also, they can have one of the factors that we already mentioned. In fact, gambling addiction can be part of another addiction to drugs or any other substance. Also, other diseases and their treatments can lead to the development of gambling disorders. Some examples include Parkinson, neurological disorders, mobility problems, and so on. Here we can see again that there is not an exact moment to become an addict, and most of the time it is a pre-existing condition. Although people commonly call this disorder love addiction, a better name will be an attachment disorder. But when we talk about love addiction, there is no substance acting in the body. It is more about personality traits and traumatic experiences acting to develop the addictive behavior. It creates a strong need to solve past situations of abandon by forcing a situation to stay with someone else. The addiction doesn't start with a love relationship, it just triggers past traumas and risk factors. Some of these developmental traumas include hard divorces of parents, parents emotionally unavailable, addicted parents, loss of close relatives, and people being neglected. In any of these situations, people tend to develop strong or negative emotions that affect their normal behavior. Currently, it is not possible to determine an exact moment when an addiction starts. However, risk factors can help to predict a disposition for some groups of people to become addicts. Although the trigger of an addiction may be in the present time, the true reasons are always in the past time of the person. Many times, it's not only one factor that triggers an addiction. Instead, it can be an accumulation of factors, facts, and situations. Although some people may have factors that increase their chances to develop an addiction, they can always avoid them or ultimately get recovered. Numerous people who go to rehab can prove it. Until now, the most effective way to start an addiction is by avoiding exposure to risk factors. All the factors and elements that motivate an addiction work progressively for certain periods of time before it appears. Thanks for watching me and see you soon on this same channel.